it's a rather complicated, you need more physics to understand this, so I will mention this, but I won't go too deeply into talking about holography about that. It's a very exciting area, it's a difficult area to work on because you need a lot of theoretical background to simulate the holographic curve that you see. And then there's the scattering technique, what I call scattering technique, scanning electron microscopy, transmission electron microscopy that we talked about briefly at the introduction of the course. These are rather straightforward, I would say, rather straightforward and common techniques. So I won't talk too much about it because I think people who use SEM and TEM would know. There are courses that talk about electron microscopy, in particular, I think based in engineering. Mechanical engineer talk about this. And if people are interested, they can come talk to me afterwards. So I won't talk so, because they are not so unique. They are very popular too, but they are not so unique. They are very powerful material science tool as well. But this is a service-related course, so I focus on service-related techniques. Then finally, the third type of technique is tip-based technique, which depends, first of all, you have scanning tunneling microscope, STM, related technique, atomic force microscopy, related to also a tip. And then finally, of course, early days is field emission microscopy that people have overlooked, but it's been used for since the 60s. Essentially, what this is just you have a fine tip, and you position the tip close to your surface, and you apply a high voltage. And you look at how this tip emits electron onto your surface, and from this pattern, you will see, you would try to interpret the physical structure of your surface that you have. It's a rather destructive technique because of the high voltage that you use. Okay, so so these are the common one that you see, 3 classes of technique, and for the remaining of this topic, I'll talk about this one, and I'll talk a little bit about the STM. Okay, that's what we will look at. Before we go on, is that I mentioned one other thing, which is the helium diffraction, right? Just to finish off diffraction technique. We've been talking about low energy electron diffraction. You can also use a helium molecular beam of helium. Very difficult to create because you have to have different differential pressure to generate helium beam, and it is possible to do that. People have done this, and helium, of course, also have a de Broglie wave, and you can have diffraction phenomena by scattering helium atom into your sample. And here are some of the example that you see, different helium diffraction pattern. One thing which is of great interest about helium diffraction is that the ability of helium looking at hydrogen atom. Okay, so hydrogen is very difficult to find on your surface because it's too small, and electron diffraction cannot really see directly hydrogen. Okay, you can see the effect of hydrogen, but not directly the position of the hydrogen. But helium diffraction, you could actually see the effect and the way the hydrogen atom interact. So here you have an example of hydrogen on top of the nickel 110 surface, and the pattern is quite different. You can see, right? So here you have nickel 100 clean. You put hydrogen on top of this clean 100 surface. You can see that the helium diffraction pattern is very different. And what they found is that this corresponds to a real space surface like this. And if you increase the coverage, the diffraction of this helium diffraction pattern also changes to a 1/2, hydrogen 1/2 structure, which look like this. And so the real space pattern like this is like this. So all you have to do is to increase the hydrogen exposure. This is beta, is the hydrogen exposure that you have. In the low exposure, you get 2/6. In a high exposure, you get mention that because just in case in future you have a conversation and say, well, you cannot see hydrogen. That's not true. In helium diffraction, you could actually see hydrogen because they do give you a different diffraction time. The other thing that Canada has done quite a lot of work, in particular in Western Ontario physics department, is called ion scattering technique. This is a sort of a pseudo-high G ion scattering technique. They are using millions of electron volts of energy to scatter a high G ion beam, right? Physically scatter a high G ion beam. So this is kind of what I try to show. Let's say you have a particle in here. Your atom is here. One of your atoms sitting in your lattice is here. So you barge this beam of ion, high energy beam of ion. So that means they are sharply focused, right? Because the more kinetic energy you have, the more sharply focused your beam. What happened? Well, what happened is kind of like you have a shadowing effect because you have an atom in here. The ion beam will just scatter off. We just bounce off like this. And then, in effect, you create a shadow, right? There's no ion beam intensity behind the atom itself, right? So what you could do then is that if you put your detector, so here, again, I draw my ion beam coming this way. This is my scatter right here. If I can put the detector underneath here, I can then pick out where the shadow is, right? So this is a shadowing effect. I can look for this shadow in the beam that passed through. And from there, from this pattern of shadow, I can then work out what is the location of these atoms that generate this, right? This is an extremely destructive technique, as you can imagine, because the ion beam that you use are millions of electron volts in kinetic energy, and you really need to talk about very tough material to sustain this kind of thing. And you can see what sort of shell that you got, so-called channeling, right? The ion channeling, the ion just channel through in between your atom, and then you can work back the lattice that created this shadow, this ion scale. So those are the two technique that people use. It was very big in Western Ontario until the physics professor retired. Helium diffraction was very big in Waterloo, as a matter of fact, by the name created, worked on by the professor named Giorgio Scolas. He's the professor in the chemistry department, who then since went to Princeton, and he was a pioneer, if you like, on the electron diffraction. So those are history related to Canada contribution to this type of surface analysis. Okay, and they are not so popular anymore. Ion scattering and helium diffraction not so popular anymore. Simply because not because they are not very good, because they are easier technique to image your surface. So people then abandon these more elaborate technique. They take a lot of instrument to do, and it's not so easy to do. And they are easier technique, as we shall see, such as XF, for example, to see a certain thing. But for hydrogen, for example, it's not so easy to see, and XF give you different type of structure information. Okay, so let me then talk. So this is sort of a prelim on other technique, other than the three that we will talk about. But this one, I like to spend a little bit of time on it because it's a different kind of phenomena. It involves different type of, slightly different physics, and it's a useful technique because very useful technique, very powerful in material science. You may come across in future people use XF to determine what they got in the powder or solid that they have, or film that they got. Okay, so I want people in this course to know about this. So I like to tell you a little bit about the basic principle. It's very simple. For the keyword, bulk analysis first, right? We're not talking about surface yet. So here the keyword here is extended